anxiety, and worry are all natural human emotions that we all experience from time to time. When facing various situations, challenges, or dangerous situations, fear often can come upon us all of a sudden. And it actually serves a purpose on most occasions. For instance, if you have a speech that you're having to do, a public speech, you may feel some fear or anxiety about it, but that fear and anxiety may push you to study harder and prepare and do whatever it takes to deliver a stellar speech. If you are walking down a street and all of a sudden a pit bull starts to charge at you, you may experience fear, intense fear. I know I would. And it may cause you to do one of possibly three things: freeze, fight, flight, or freeze. And those are all needed sometimes. Those responses are what's called for sometimes in dangerous or fearful situations, and that fear can serve a purpose and help you to be in survival mode. It can change how your mental processes work, how your body chemistry works, to prepare you to respond in a way that could potentially save your life in an actual situation. But what happens when fear can maybe spin out of control and become so intense that it could become experienced on a regular basis, a daily basis, for weeks, days, months at a time? What can happen to a person? It could develop into what's called a phobia. And what a phobia is an intense reaction or fear to a certain situation, object, or a thing. And today, that is what our show is going to be about. I want to welcome you to Through the Storm. This show is about finding hope in God while weathering the storms of life. My name is Chantelle Johnson, and I am the clinical director and owner for Soul Care Christian Counseling in Charlotte, North Carolina. I want to welcome you, and I want to welcome a very special guest, a young man who is very brave in coming on today, and he'll be speaking to us and putting a human face on one phobia. We're going to focus on one phobia, and our guest is Mr. Robert Jones. Welcome, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on and agreeing to share your personal testimony and experiences while dealing with a phobia. And like I mentioned, phobias are intense fear. Sometimes, oftentimes it might be irrational, it may not make sense. And there are different types of phobias that people have. There is fear of spiders, which is called arachnophobia, fear of heights, acrophobia. There are just various different specific phobias that people may have, and what causes them, nobody really knows. There's not one specific thing that causes them. But we wanted to discuss, one of the phobias we'll be discussing today is agoraphobia. And that is considered probably the mother of all phobias. And what it is a fear of having panic. And panic is like that most intense fear that causes like a body response, a mind response. And it can sometimes be debilitating, and people start to avoid places and situations where they have experienced that type of panic and fear. And I want to once again thank Mr. Jones for being on here and sharing his story. And Mr. Jones, could you kind of tell us, before you experienced agoraphobia, had you ever heard of that term?
Never.
No?
No, never.
And can you tell us what led up to experiencing agoraphobia?
Yes, I was in a house fire. I lost everything, and it was just, after that happened, I just couldn't leave the house. Once I moved, I couldn't leave the house. I actually stayed in the house for an entire year.
For an entire year?
Mm-hmm.
And with that fire, were you actually in the home when it started?
I was.
And can you tell us what led up to the fire and what that was like for you?
It was an electrical fire. I was staying with my aunt at the time, and It was electrical fire, and I blamed myself for it, and so then that's what triggered the panic attacks and agoraphobia and all that.
Okay. And what were some of the symptoms? What are some of the symptoms that you've experienced with the
heart racing, sweating, jittery, thinking you're gonna die. That's the most craziest part. And just not leaving your comfort zone.
Okay. So heart racing, sweaty, feeling jittery, and just overall fearful that you're gonna die. Before the house fire, had you ever experienced those intense types of feelings?
I did, but not as intense as after the house fire.
Okay. And were you alone in the house fire? Were other?
No, I actually had I was babysitting 2 kids and a dog, and I made sure they got out, and I tried to go in there and get my bag. Smoke got in my mouth and my throat, so I ran out.
Wow. So that sounds like it was very frightening. And then you had not only your life to think about, you were thinking about the life of others. Wow. And the symptoms that you described, I could imagine that you were feeling them during the fire.
Correct.
And how did that play out after the fire?
Well, I went to the neighbor's house, and the paramedic, like my family, everybody came over to see was I okay, and my heart was racing for like 2 hours. As long as they was putting the fire out, they wanted me to go to the hospital. I wouldn't go.
What was your reason for not wanting to go? Do you remember?
Because of just leaving my comfort zone.
Okay. So, had you ever felt that way before?
I actually have. When I was driving, that's when it actually really started, minor ones. Just driving, and I get hot, I get cold, I get hot, I get cold. And at the time, it was during the Sharika Adams case, the Ray Caruth case.
Oh, okay.
And I was having a baby on the way myself, and I don't know, I guess it just stuck in my head what happened, and from there it just back and forth, panic attacks.
Okay. Was this before the fire or after the fire?
This was before the fire. There was minor ones, but when the fire happened, and that's when it started getting worse.
Okay. And for those of you who may not be familiar, the case that he's referring to was a high-profile case in our area of an athlete in a murder case that was constantly, I guess, on the television, the radio, and so you were kind of hearing those things. Yeah,
because I was working, I was driving, delivering auto glass, and just listening to it. And, I guess it did something to me. I don't know, it just happened from nowhere. Just came out of nowhere.
And you were also having a baby who was on the way as well. Did that impact you along with that case, or how did that?
Yes, they say it did, yes, once I finally seeked help.
Okay. And so you started from then, when you were driving and working and listening to all of this, started experiencing like little panic attacks, or were they big?
Yeah, little ones. And then it just got greater and greater, especially when the fire happened.
Okay. And so after the fire, was it immediately after the fire that you sought out help, or thought, like, at what point did you feel like something was not, you're not being your normal self?
Well, at the time I was 22, and when I went to the ER, they said go to mental health. I wasn't hearing that. I mean, I'm 22. I just didn't want to hear that. So, really took the cake when I couldn't make my grandma's funeral because I was stuck in the house for a year, and that really took the cake.
Okay. And did you seek help on your own, or did someone kind of push?
I did. Just doing a lot of research, trying to find therapists online to talk to me, and phone interviews, and that's how it started.
Okay. And did you find people who were willing to come into your home, or did you have to go out to them?
I did. I actually found a pastoral counselor. She came to the house. She charged, but she came to the house, and some guy I met in California, he was talking to me about it, and I used him as medical records. And I was just looking up psychiatrists, and one sent me some pills. He was here in Charlotte. He sent me some pills. He told me the name of it, the side effects. It was Zoloft.
Okay.
And he just kept sending me pills and wanted me to get better.
Okay. And so that sounds like those were some of your first steps towards getting better. Okay. And were all the people that you were working with, were they all kind of working together?
No. I was just doing research on finding different people, trying to get the pills, and then luckily I found him last, and he was able to get me the pills.
Okay. And how helpful was the medication?
Honestly, it was awful.
Really?
Yeah, it was awful because it made me dizzy all the time, and I didn't really have panic attacks, but the medicine, just the feeling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion talking about agoraphobia with Mr. Jones. We'll be right back. And we're back. Thank you for tuning in once again. This is Through the Storm, a show about finding hope in God while weathering the storms of life. We have a very special guest today, Mr. Robert Jones, and he is sharing his story, his personal story on overcoming agoraphobia. And we were just talking about how he came to learn about agoraphobia and how certain life situations happened that led up to experiencing panic attacks. Okay, panic attacks. And after experiencing a house fire where he felt his life was in danger, not wanting to go outside and not venturing out of the home for, you said, a year? Okay, what was that like?
It was awful. Like, I couldn't make my grandma's funeral. I couldn't go to parties. It was just stuck in the house eating, and really wouldn't go past the porch. I wouldn't even check the mailbox. No, so it was real hectic. And so you were working prior to receiving this diagnosis, and so if you're in a home for a year, then that means you left your job at some point? Correct.
How difficult was that, or what was that?
It was very difficult as far as, eating and having money and doing what I want to do. I didn't have that. Like my mom, she came through, but not as much as I want.
Okay. And so as a family, I was going to ask, what type of support systems did you have while you were in the home for that year?
Everyone. My whole family, pretty much, they just wanted me to get out. And it wasn't that easy. So before I met the psychiatrist, I was just taking like Tylenol PMs to keep me calm, to try to get me out. It worked shortly, but it just, panic attacks got greater, the phobia got greater.
Okay. And so when was the turning point from the time when you were in the home for that year and you actually ventured out?
It's funny because I had a hearing about disability, and it took me like, my mom was taking me, and it took me like 2 hours to get out the driveway. I took Tylenol PMs, and she was like, well, let me turn the car around. I'm not going to bag back. Let me just go ahead and have the car forward so you could go ahead and leave. And, once I won my case, I got Medicaid and started getting the proper treatment. And once I started taking the medication, I was good to go. I was finally getting to see Charlotte. I'm born and raised here, so it's things that I didn't see because I was in the house that year. Wow.
So you were your life basically stopped for that year. And it took, missing your grandmother's a very important event to you, even to this day.
Mm-hmm.
It took missing that to start to consider and reaching out to get help. And I really applaud you. You took matters into your own hands, and you took responsibility for your health care,
Mm-hmm.
and you started taking steps to put the picture back together again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of times what people do. Sometimes because we don't know a lot about certain mental illnesses, we know a lot about physical illnesses, high blood pressure, diabetes, and we don't hesitate to go seek out a doctor or seek out help. But a lot of times when we're experiencing mental health issues related to our emotions, we don't have a lot of information that's available. So I really appreciate you being on with us today to discuss this very important topic, because I believe that there is probably someone out there who may be experiencing something that's out of their norm. Maybe they've gone through some type of situation in life that, they start to behave differently. The joy that they used to have may not be there. They may develop fears that they didn't have before.
Right, and it's to be honest, it's embarrassing, but you have no control over it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want people to look at you a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And but I learned, it's not gonna change. Who cares what people think about me? So
Exactly.
just kept it pushing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm very proud of how you keep it pushing. I know that you have come a long ways since being in the home for that year. And if you could rewind, they say hindsight is 20/20.
Right.
Knowing what you know now, if you were talking to somebody experiencing what you went through, what is some advice that you could give them?
Just don't be ashamed. Don't worry about what people say. Do the research on it, and just try to seek help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And help is available. Most people who develop certain types of phobias, if they seek out help, and there's help out there, they do find healing and find ways to live with those things or to just recover from them altogether. At Soul Care Christian Counseling, we have therapists available to use different techniques and to be able to bring out, get to the root of those issues and to do what is needed, do treatment to reverse and help to alleviate those symptoms. What have been some of the things that you have done that have helped? I know you mentioned the medications management, so that's been very effective.
Therapy. For some reason, it's stuck in my head. Drink water, something cold. Everywhere I go, I got a bottle of water. So that, and just having kids. So
how does that help, or how does that impact the situation?
Like, they gotta eat, so I need to just be stronger and get my faith stronger. I actually had a list of things that I wanted to do, when I'm able to get out. And one of them was going to church. Other one visiting my kids. Go to a Panthers game, go to a Hornets game at the time, and excuse my language, go to the strip club. So, and I got to do all that stuff. Go to R. Kelly concert, so I got to do all that, and just a couple more things that I haven't did, but I'm getting it.
Okay. And your family has been very instrumental in being a support for you. Are there other support systems in the community that have been helpful?
Yeah, well, I was with several agencies, but I didn't like them because it's like they threw me under the bus. It's like you, just another person with going through something. So I constantly switch agencies, but dealing with you, it's a perfect fit.
Amen. Thank you. I'll pay you later.
Okay.
And with the church, one thing with this show is to kind of talk about how our churches can help people going through mental illness and challenges. Are there things that a church could have maybe done to help or could do to help?
That's a good question. I can't answer that right now, but that's a good question.
Okay.
Because I'm stubborn, and I don't like change. I don't do good with change. So if I'm going to one church, I like to stick to that church. If I'm going to this restaurant, I like to stick to it. That's just me. I don't do good with change.
Okay. And do you belong to any particular?
Well, I go to New Life church when I can. Pastor John P.K. Church.
Okay. And has it been helpful in your healing and overcoming?
It has. It has, because he let you know this is the hood church. So I grew up in the hood. So, he don't sugarcoat nothing. So he just keep it real, and that's why I go.
Okay, so you feel very comfortable when you go there.
Because he was on drugs, so and he sold drugs, so he keep you laughing, he tell his stories, and he also, he preached. So.
Amen. And you mentioned the background for him with drugs, and we talked about medications management. And one thing that I see a lot of times when people are experiencing mental health symptoms like intense fear or anxiety and worry, difficulty sleeping, sometimes people turn to drugs. You try the Tylenol PM first.
That's it. I ain't never
nothing else.
I ain't never did nothing. I ain't never drunk. I ain't never smoked nothing. So.
Okay, which is great.
Yeah.
And sometimes people do that. They self-medicate with other things.
Yeah.
But you never tried any of those things.
Nope.
Okay, amen. And now you're under the care of a doctor. Has that been helpful? How's that helped?
Just taking the same medication. At times I want to change, because at times it kind of comes on and off. But so far so good. Like I'm at the house, so and that's been since my daughter was a baby. So, and she's 11 now, so.
Okay. So it's been working for you. Okay. And sometimes, in our community, we may think that medications are not good for people to take, that you can overcome certain challenges just au natural, but medications do help.
It do help. Like my mama, when it first started happening, all she did was grab the lavender, take a bath in some lavender, put some lavender on your forehead. So I was like, Mom, this ain't working.
And so you kind of had to educate your family.
Right, and myself, yeah.
And yourself along the way. And oftentimes, it's good to, we have Google and, the internet and just so many sources where we can look up information when we're going through different things. Okay. And where do you see yourself maybe in the next year or 5 years?
I want to own my own house. I want all my kids, and I actually wanted to start a support group. I just never, I never followed up to it.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. So and I coach youth basketball, so that helps me a lot too.
Okay. And can you tell me about the support group, what your thoughts are with that?
Just trying to find people that are suffering and going through similar things that I was going through, and just have like a forum, everybody talk, and get out for chat. Okay.
And that sounds like a great idea, because groups are very powerful. When you were going through your illness, did you feel like you were the only person going through that? Did you ever think that?
I did, and again, I was 22, so I wasn't hearing it. Went to the ER. He said, go to mental health. I'm like, no, you crazy? I'm 22. This ain't happening to me, So, and as I got older, just educated myself.
Okay, so it sounded like you had to go through some stages of acknowledging what was happening, and being in denial. And coming to acceptance that it is what it is, and to take the steps to deal with it.
Right, and also my family, most of my family encouraged me too, because I didn't like when I finally got out and going to gatherings, everybody say, "You okay? Are you all right?" You know, that turned me off. I didn't want to hear that. Just be happy to see me, you know.
Exactly. So how our families respond to us when they know that we have some challenges is very important. Yeah, because I always think, you know, I always go back to, if you have high blood pressure or diabetes, when you go to a family gathering, nobody is usually asking, "How are you?" You know, they treat us very differently when that happens. Okay, well, that's some excellent information that you have shared with us. And is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to share?
No, not really.
Because I know we've kind of scratched the surface a little bit.
Yeah, we did. But no, not really.
Okay. And how about for mental health professionals? Because you say you've used different agencies and different people in trying to get the help that you need. Like, what are some things that could be improved amongst the healthcare agencies?
Well, just take the time and get to know someone and get to know their illness personally, and you know, instead of just as another patient or another person, you know, you get overlooked.
Yes. And did you ever feel that?
I did, and I have fired a lot of therapists.
Okay. Hey, sometimes you have to do that because everybody's not a good fit. And so that's very important to take control of your health care. Our motto at Soul Care Christian Counseling is care for your soul, care for your life. And it's based on the premise that if you're caring for your soul, which is your mind, your will, and your emotions, that everything else with your life will fall into place. God has made us a mind, a body, and a spirit, and everything is working together to create the whole person. And the Bible tells us that God has created us in His image, and what He created, He says, is good. And so for everybody that comes through our doors at Soul Care, we want to treat them like they're our brothers and sisters in Christ, because that's who they are. And God has made us, you know, He's no respecter of persons. And mental illness, you know, I always think sometimes we are one incident away from experiencing a drastic, persistent mental illness. And so therefore, by the grace of God, go I. And, you know, using the golden rule, treat others the way that you want to be treated, is a beautiful thing. And many people that experience mental illness, you can't look at people and tell. They're our brothers, our sisters, our parents, our co-workers, our bosses. You can't look at people and tell, but because there is help available, you know, you can get that help and be able to lead a full life and do all the things that you want to do. And I'm very proud of you for pushing your way and pressing your way and coming out of that house and taking that step of faith, because I know that had to be really challenging and not so easy. And you have a lot of gifts and talents. I know personally that you've blessed a lot of people in your life, and even I believe by doing this today, I believe that somebody's going to be blessed by your testimony, and to know the goodness of the Lord, that where you are, you don't have to stay there. You can take charge and move forward. Do you have any parting words for our audience?
Just have faith. Keep the faith.
Amen. Amen. And I'd like to share one of my favorite scriptures that deals with fear and anxiety. It's Philippians 4, verse 6 and 7. And I hope I quote it correctly. Y'all can help me if I don't. But it says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. And the peace of God that surpasses all understanding, let it guard your hearts and minds till the day of Christ Jesus. And so when you're experiencing fear, worry, anxiety, you can pray about it. You know, God answers our prayers. And when you come to Him, come with thanksgiving in your heart. Think of all the things that you're thankful and grateful for. And there is power in that. And begin to experience God's peace. And I will leave you with that. And I thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Through the Storm. We air on Tuesdays on the Wake Up Call Radio and TV network. And I thank again Mr. Robert Jones for being with us and being courageous to come and share his testimony with others. And I pray that you will be blessed. Thank you, and till we meet again, see you later.